off and running. Hey everybody, Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV, coming to you from Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, with a repeat offender. It's like a gum stuck on the bottom of the Drum Talk TV shoe. He keeps coming back. Carmine Appice coming to us from Florida. They still haven't kicked him out. Carmine, how's it going, man?
Good, man. They haven't kicked me out. I love it here.
That's awesome.
I'm looking at a canal in the back and grass. Yesterday, when I woke up, there was an alligator on the grass. There was a family of ducks. The alligator went in the water, followed by a turtle. So it's
it's like Miss Dr. Dolittle.
It's like the wild kingdom out here, you know?
Exactly. That's hilarious. Folks, let us know if you have questions and comments. I'll relay them. When I'm looking over here, I'm watching our interview and looking for comments. I'm not watching the Flintstones like on Marco Miniman's interview. Don't tell him. So, Carmine, new King Kobra album coming out. That's exciting. What's going on with that?
I don't think it's going to be out until January, because we started it last year, like May, and COVID was still rocking. So we started doing it all over everybody's house that has a studio. So now that I have a house here with a studio, I've been doing a lot of work here. So we started last May, and we didn't have any songs. We had to start from scratch.
Right.
So we started with drum grooves and wrote songs to different drum grooves that we had.
Nice.
And little by little, we got all the songs. And we didn't even have the two guitar players. We had to get two new guitar players. So we got Carlos Cavazo, who comes from Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
And Rowan Robinson, that played with Dio. And they're both tremendous guitar players,
Yeah.
We got Johnny Rod, a crazy bass player. And Paul Shortino's been singing. Now, Paul, I said, Paul, you be the producer, because you have the Pro Tools setup where we could all send this stuff to, and you're more experienced than I am. I can get drum sounds, I could sing in my studio, but I never recorded guitars or basses or nothing.
Yeah.
So I said, you be like the producer, I'll be the executive producer. And between the two of us, we'll get it all together. We'll get stuff from Carlos and from Rowan. And Rowan lives in Vegas with Paul. So, Rowan went over Paul's house and put stuff together. And Johnny Rod flew in from wherever he is. He's all over the place.
Yeah.
And, and that's how we did it. And little by little, got songs together and we changed things. And so now we're into mixing. We're on song number 10 of 11. And I'm supposed to have that today finished. But I talked to Cleopatra, who's the label. I said, when do you want to release this? I mean, it's going to take a while,
Yeah.
to get, they got the album cover done. We have the title. I'm moving around here. We got the title. It's called Music is a Piece of Art. And we're going to do a piece with my name in there.
Nice.
And I thought that was a bit tacky. So
Yeah.
we're not going to do that. But Music is a Piece of Art. It's a really cool title. One of the songs is called that. And the lyrics are in your ears and through your heart,
Nice.
It's really cool,
That's a great concept. I love that.
Yeah, and so the artwork is supposedly going to be art kind of stuff, But we haven't showed it to the label yet, so I want to finish the album. After we finish mixing it, then we're going to bounce it to analog, so it gives it more warmth.
Get the warmth
and then we'll give that and the artwork that we put together to the label. And
Great.
And the head of the label, Brian Barrera, is a good friend of mine. I mean, he actually came to my 75th birthday party from LA here in Florida. And, he said, I got a great concept for the video. I said, okay, so we're going to let him go with the concept, let his concept go. I mean, you can't go wrong when the president of the company has a concept for the video. And I said, fine, then you guys do it.
Yeah.
So we'll probably end up flying into Vegas. I think he has some concept with cars and good-looking chicks, car washes. So my buddy, Counting Cars, that TV show.
Danny. Yeah,
Danny's out there.
You remember I lived a mile from Vamped when we were living.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So then, we'll probably try and get Danny's car, all the beautiful cars involved,
Yeah.
And the last two videos we did with King Kobra, Danny was in them.
Yeah. That's a great
one way or
concept.
another.
Yeah. That's
So we got
great.
kind of the whole plan now, and then if it comes out in January, we're going to try and put some gigs together, you
Great.
know,
Yeah.
and because the '80s thing is happening now.
Yeah. Everything circles back, right?
Well, I mean, it goes forward. You had the '60s were happening, the
Right.
'70s. Now it's the '80s.
Yeah.
And then like 10 years from now, it'll be the '90s.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and it follows the crowd too.
yeah,
People
exactly.
going to the '80s get like 50 years old. People going to Vanilla Fudge gigs are like 70 years old.
Right.
So the audience kind of fades away unless you're The Who or Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin.
Yeah. That's so neat. What was the biggest, other than the personnel, what was the biggest difference in the approach to writing and producing this album compared, and maybe the music itself?
Everybody's in a different place.
Yeah, it was file
The other
sharing.
two albums we did and the other albums we did in the '80s, we were all in the same room.
Right.
The other two albums, we had 3 out of 5 in the same room. It was me, Paul, and Dave, the guitar player. So between the three of us, we put the songs together, and we got Johnny Rod and Mick on it. But even Mick came out to Vegas and did it in Vegas. This one, everybody's in a different place,
Yeah.
except for Paul and Rowan. Sometimes they were together, but a lot of times Rowan was in his house, Carlos is in his house, Johnny Rod came in and did the bass with Paul. Paul's in his house, and I'm in Florida.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, actually. I love recording this way because you play to a click, and I started doing this in 1982 with Vanilla Fudge. And, it was always a drag that you put the drum track down, then 2 or 3 weeks later, if you didn't like something, you were stuck with it,
Yeah.
So I started recording with a click, which enabled me to go in and fix stuff. But the only thing was the drag about that. I had to have the drums up still. Like we
Right,
do
have the same
drums, and
sounds.
we lock out the studio, do the drums and do the bass. So we'd have like the studio locked out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and get most of the album done.
Leave the mics for
But
the
then,
right
but
sound.
then that changed later on,
Yeah.
So having it in my house, I don't use these drums for anything but recording. So they're set up all the time. The mics are set up all the time. The AC is set on a certain, number every day. Humidifier is set a certain number. So the drum sound never changes. So what I recorded today, I can go in a month from now and redo a drum fill I don't like,
Right.
or
Have the same
redo
sound.
a verse, And I've learned to engineer this stuff, which is really cool.
That's great. Do you like that aspect of it, of the
I
recording
do,
process?
because it's always like, guitar players, bass players, singers, everybody was able to do that before. Everybody but drums,
Right.
Back in the '60s, when we had 8-track,
Yeah.
bass player and Tim didn't like something, went in, recut it. Vocals, we recut it. Organ, recut it. Drums, no.
Right.
It took, 1982 from '67. All the cuts I did before that, all the Rod Stewart stuff and everything, the drums were the first thing we got.
Right.
Like when we did Hot Legs, I did all those fills. If we didn't like those fills, we have to do the whole track again.
Yeah.
But the key is to try and get it in the first 2 or 3 takes so you get that energy and the vibe,
Yeah,
Otherwise,
Back
forget about
then,
it.
yeah, it was almost impossible to really punch
I remember
in a
one
drum
King
fill.
Kobra song was take number 16. I said, forget about 16. Let's do another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's come back to it tomorrow,
Yeah. Well, January's not that far off, Carmine, if you consider
Yeah,
we're
6
halfway
months.
through the year already.
We have a lot. We have a lot to do.
Yeah. It'll
we
fly
have to
by.
finish the editing. I'm finished the mixing and some editing, and then we have to bounce it to analog. Then we got to bring it back, and then we got to do the artwork, then do the video. Before you know it, you said, well, maybe try and get a single out for Christmas.
That's
which is
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. When you bounce it to analog, do you literally bounce it to a multi-track tape like the big Ataris or?
Well, we take the 2-track, the stereo mix, and we bounce it all to a 24-track machine.
Mm-hmm.
through a Neve board, through old compressors and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
that's
So
great.
when it comes back sounding warmer,
Yeah.
you know.
Now, it's funny when we talk about the cycle of music and the cycle of things. When Solid State came in, when Pro Tools came in, all that stuff, everyone thought, oh, great, no more wash machine sized tape machines and all that. Now it's all coming back for the exact reasons you just said, to make it something you recorded with a digital process, to make it have the warmth and punch of analog. The only way to really do that is with
I mean,
analog.
it's not exactly the same, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when we were Blue Murder, working with Bob Rock, and Bob bounced the 224 tracks to a 40 track digital.
Yeah.
And me and John Sykes said, we walked in and said, we don't want it to be digital. We want it to be analog. You know, that's it. And Bob Rock said, either get out of here or I'm not going to mix. And that was the end of that.
Let the magician do his thing, right?
So that album sounded amazing because it started out analog.
Yeah.
But the tapes that came out, you know, the songs that came out, they sounded much better on the analog than it did on the finished mix, because then the finished mix went to CD and went to vinyl.
Yeah. That's cool.
But it started analog, went to digital, and then back to digital for the CD, and vinyl is kind of analog.
Makes sense. I want to ask the audience to feel free to chime in with questions or comments. If you've ever seen King Kobra perform live, or if you have a favorite track or album of theirs, go ahead and give a shout out. And I guess that goes for anything Carmine has done, if you could even keep track of that, from Cactus, Vanilla Fudge, to Ozzy, to Ted Nugent, to Rod Stewart. Yeah, it's like, where does it end? I think Bay City Rollers, Helen Reddy, Engelbert Humperdinck.
You're not kidding. You're not far off.
I know. And before we started, if you can talk about it, you started talking about an album you're doing with a young lady. Do you want to mention anything about that yet?
Well, it's just an EP. Her name is Lisa G. We got 5 tracks done. It's going to be on Deco Records. And she came up with this idea to be really, like patriotic. And she came up with this song idea. And every time she comes up with a song idea, she runs it by me. And then I help her arrange it, put it together so it makes it better, like a better song, chord structures and all that, and some melody ideas, even, correcting some of the lyrics and stuff. And then we give it to the guitar player. We tell him how it has to go. She plays keyboard, so she'll give him a keyboard version of it. Then I'll talk to him and tell him what I'm looking for. And then he'll send me a click in the guitar, and I'll go over it. Like first thing they sent me wasn't right. So I talked it over with them. He fixed it, or she fixed it by editing.
Oh.
And gave me the click last night, a vocal and guitar. So it gives me something to play to. So today I did the drums on it. And I did exactly what I did. I didn't like a verse. I didn't like this part. So I punched in that part.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful when you punch in that. You don't get a block, blip, like a flam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. After I'm done with everything, I just put the click on and the drums. I'm going to listen down to the whole thing and make sure the click is in the drum. But I don't play right on the click. I play a little behind it.
Yeah.
I learned that from Rod Stewart. Rod always played behind the beat.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a lot more fun. So I went out there and I was looking at the clocks. I knew I had to do this with you, So I went out about 12:30, 1:45, and by 2:30, I had all the drums down and I did some background vocals that I was hearing. And then at the end of this thing, I did a snare drum march, which now, after we're done, I'm going to go back in and put 3 or 4 different snare drums.
Nice.
Doing like a military marching thing, and then have background vocals on that.
That's awesome.
As fading on that,
Yeah. Last time we did an interview, you were the first interview of 2022. You gave us a tour of the studio and you opened a closet and you had some vintage drums in there. What are you using for the marching part? Is it anything old?
The original one I'm using is the 2004, 2003 Slingerland, the Pink Leopard. That's my main snare drum I recorded.
Yeah.
So right now I took out the 69 Ludwig wood. That'll be the first one. I'm going to take out the 1924 Ludwig brass. and I'd be the second overdub. And then I got this at my party. Leslie, my wife, bought these little 12-inch pearl snare drums.
Like popcorn snares? They're kind of like this?
No, it's like 3 inches by,
Oh, a pancake
by
snare.
12 or 10. I mean, it's a baby snare.
Yeah,
I'm going to see what that sounds like.
that's cool.
So I want to put Bruce Pilatos calling me, you know. And let me text him and tell him we're doing this interview.
Yeah, no problem.
So I want to, get that one because I don't even know if it's going to sound good,
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think that you'll find, and this is probably part of your strategy with using those different snares and getting all those different sounds. If you record 4 parts,
Yeah, and
one
then you
on
spread them
each.
out in different
Yeah, it'll probably
stereo.
sound like 12 people
And
though.
then I might do the snare drum, a guitar snare, where I scrape the snares with a pick.
Yeah,
I put that on there too.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And it adds like, just a lot of rhythm. There's a certain part there's a breakdown. So I'm thinking of putting like one of the snare drums marching, you put that way in the background,
Yeah. Back in my son Stephen, who's watching, I'll get to comments in a moment. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 75 when Steve Howe did his first solo album, Beginnings. There was a song on there called Guitar Rondo. And the video he did for that, he layered guitar, then banjo, a bunch of different instruments, a washboard.
Yeah.
Remember, he kept appearing in different squares, playing with himself. I'd love to see a video like that of you putting parts like this together, a video clip of you using each drum and the pick. That'd be awesome.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. This woman does her own videos too. She's the editor.
That'd be great.
So I can have my green screen up there, and I can put me there, and then I'll be over there. And
Exactly, with the different parts and everything.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on in the comments. Stephen does say 30-year cycles. I kind of feel like the 90s is already kind of happening, but not to the extent that the 80s still are. Christopher Simpson, owner of DNA Drums, says, "Hello, y'all. Hello, how are you?" Tom Sullivan says, "Saw Carmine at Go DPS in Newbury Park with Vinny. Wish they would do it again." Newbury Park, near where I grew up in the West Valley there. Yeah. Awesome. Are you and Vinny having plans to go back out?
We're getting ready to do more with
Drum Wars?
Well, we're not going to call it Drum Wars anymore. We're going to call it Appice Brothers because people think that Drum Wars is a clinic.
Oh.
And the agents have a problem booking it. So we're rebranding the whole thing.
It's a performance.
Appice Brothers, a tribute to our careers or something like that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Like we have an intro tape that Rick Savage, the wrestler, did, and Uncle Joe Benson did.
I remember
So
Joe.
I just sent it to Rick Gratton. I said, anywhere it says Drum Wars, put the brothers, not Appice or Appice, And then I said, do Appice Brothers and Appice Brothers, with that wrestling voice. And instead of going, it's time for Drum Wars, go, it's time to rock.
That's
we're going to
perfect.
insert those in the intro so we can still use the intro because the intro is fun. It goes, it's Appice, it's Appice, it's Appice. It's Appice, and then we go through the songs that we're going to play and the bands and stuff. And it's a career thing,
Yeah, you should have
It's
your
almost
other.
it's almost like a tribute band
Yeah,
to ourselves.
to your careers.
We got a great band. We got a great band, great singer, great bass player, great guitar player.
Yeah.
So it really works,
That's great.
Now we're rebranding all that right now. We got a good agent, finally.
Right.
And they're telling us we got to rebrand all this stuff because, people think it's a drum clinic, when it isn't.
Yeah. It's a total performance. Going into drumming for just a bit, why do you have any idea? Has anyone ever told you, or have you ever overheard or read why a lot of drummers are resistant to practicing with a metronome or recording with a click or learning how to do that? Because you've already articulated why that's important, especially the way music is recorded today. What do you think is kind of that mental impasse that so many drummers have about doing that?
I don't know any drummers that have that.
Really? I've heard that a lot, where they don't want to play with the click. I think it's because they've they haven't done it. They're not good at it. So they just don't do it.
Maybe they haven't done it and they can't play it.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to this church down here. The whole thing is run on it. Click.
Really?
Yeah, and they're playing live. And they're awesome. They got like 9 singers and 2 guitar players, bass. The drummer's a monster. I actually got them a drum set from D-Drum because when I went to the church first, they were playing electronic drums. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to try and get you a kit. And I got him a D-Drum kit. This guy's a monster. I want to do a book with him, learn to play Christian rock drumming because it's really different.
Yeah.
Very tribal. There's a lot of tribal stuff in it, and I love it.
That's great.
The band, and I wrote 3 Christian songs. I just got signed up to a small movie that's going to come out.
Oh, really?
And, I produced them. I did the drums here, and my buddy Fernando Perdomo, who's my partner in the instrumental album.
Yeah.
He did the bass and drums on it, and one of the guitar players from the church, and this woman that I'm producing, Lisa G, she wrote one of the pre-choruses and the chorus, and it came out great. And I'm playing this tribal kind of drumming that's a bit different for me,
Yeah, definitely.
And I enjoyed it. I really liked it.
That's cool.
And now we sold it to this movie, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is great. Can you talk about the instrumental album?
Yeah. Well, we did one already, and the first one got unbelievable reviews everywhere. Like Classic Rock Magazine, I think it was, had a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
We had 9 out of 10, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, different reviews with different magazines and reviewers. So people love it. And some people thought it was my partner, Fernando, was Jeff Beck playing guitar because he's really a great player, but he plays bass and plays keyboard.
Wow.
So we do the same thing. A couple of times, I just give him a drum track, right? I said, what can you do with this? First time I did it, he gave me a track that he's, Cuban descent from Miami. So he gave me a drum track, which is kind of a Latin rock, heavy Latin rock thing. So I played to it. Then at the end, I said, I got to add to this. I did a press roll and I did real fast double bass drum shuffle with accents. I said, what can you do with this? So he put music to it and it was awesome.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's called Little Havana and Big Havana.
Oh,
you can hear that. You can have that. You see it on YouTube.
Great.
So after that, I said, I got a few other drum tracks on my computer. Let me give you one. So I gave him another one. Man, it came out fantastic. When I started writing with him, I gave him some tracks that I wrote on my iPad. And I played guitar, bass, drums, and keyboard on my iPad. And I gave him these tracks, and he added to them, sent them back to me, and then I played real drums on them. And this is how we've been writing. He's in LA, and I'm over here. So I did all my stuff here, and he did all his stuff in LA. Now he bought, he's renting a place that's a proper studio with a couple of rooms in the back where he lives. And it's a real studio with a board and, separate room for the control room and stuff. And he's got everything there. He's got B3, he's got all kinds of stuff. And we do all this crazy music. So on the first album, we got Derek Sherinian to play keyboard on it, which was great. On this new album, I just got the track from Billy Sheehan playing bass.
Nice.
Right? And we got Derek Sherinian on the same track.
Oh, nice.
And that's half of Sons of Apollo.
Yeah.
And we got Fernando playing guitar. And originally he played guitar and he played keyboard. And when I got the track back from Billy, he said, I tried to do an unbelievable tribute to Tim Bogert and play like Tim would play this. Unbelievable. This bass track is ridiculous.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then we got Jimmy Haslett from the Yellow Jackets and many other things. Put him on a kind of a funky-ish rock song. We got Tony Franklin on a ballad.
Nice.
And we got Bumblefoot on a really cool song called Code 22, which is basically like COVID.
Yeah.
Code 22.
19.
Huh?
Code 19.
Well, it used to be Code 19, but now,
this is year 22.
It was Code 19 on my guitars was shrinking. But I thought about COVID, so we changed it to COVID 22.
For the year, yeah.
Yeah. And we put Bumblefoot on it, and that's in 7/8.
Nice.
The tracks in 7/8. I mean, there's a lot of stuff all over. And the track that Billy did, it's in 3 bars of 4, 1 bar of 7/8. When the solo comes, goes through 7/8, and then I start playing up tempo against the 7/8.
Oh,
You know,
nice.
it's just really clever stuff and good stuff. So this album, I think, is going to be even better than the last one.
When does that come out?
I don't know yet because we're not done with it.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't wait to hear that.
We've been working on this stuff, you know, and there's no like pressure.
Yeah, it's the
you
best
know,
way
like,
to create.
There's no pressure. Like, you know, he said, I got a good idea for a track. He played this one track called Jungle, The Jungle. And he's got all these wild effects like bird effects. And I gave him a drum track that I recorded on my phone that I heard somewhere. And I copied it. I did it my own way and I recorded it on my phone. And I said, wow, what do you think of this groove? And he sends back a whole song based around that groove.
That's
and
great.
I said, well, it's the jungle. I got to put other stuff to it. But I didn't hear anything, you know, for months and months and months. Finally, about 3 weeks ago, I said, you know, it's in that tempo. I'm going to play half the time of that, like We Will Rock You against it, you know, with hand claps, the bass drum, and then some jungle Gene Krupa kind of tom-tom stuff.
Nice.
You know, so it wasn't really like I sat down and played the whole track. It's like we built, you know, like we built a whole song based around drum rhythms and different rhythms.
I was going to say, it sounds rhythmically orchestrated, basically.
Yeah, it's orchestrated. That's a good word for it. I orchestrated the drums, which started from that thing I put on my phone, you know, which has a good sound. You know, when you record on your phone, the drums sound good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That does sound good, you know?
Yeah.
And after we're done with this album, we'll bounce it all to analog too, you know?
Great.
But we got all kinds of really cool songs on here, you know?
I'm looking forward to that. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to call it yet. He's great. I did a song with Vanilla Fudge. We did an NSYNC song called, which one was it? I forgot the name of it. And anyway, it started off with a bum, 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 ba bum, bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, bum, 7/8, 7/4, bum, 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 ba bum, bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, 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 ba bum, you know, like that. And then it goes into an up-tempo 4 and then back to that. And I listened to it a while ago and I said, you know what, this would be a good drum track to send to Fernando. So I re-recorded that drum track with some different ideas in it. And he sent it back to me. And then I worked on it with him and I said, well, let's do a slide here for the melody. And let's cut the melody, let's cut that bar out, put it, you know. And we do all this on the phone, an email, and then he would send it back. And I go, yeah, that's good. Then I recut the drums, you know?
That's cool.
So he called it Fu Manchu.
Nice. He's good with the titles.
Comes with these silly names, which, you know, goes with this.
Yeah, exactly.
No? He said he was
great.
thinking of that, you know?
That's great. Let's see if there's any questions, comments. Tom Sullivan says, love your drumming, Carmine. And we've got, thanks for the shout out. I really am eager for this instrumental album because it sounds like we will see different shades of everybody's playing who's on it that people might not be used to. You know, often musicians get sort of, I hate to use the word typecast or stereotype, but you get known for this. And I love when musicians can create something together where there's other flavors and colors in there that people aren't really used to coming from those musicians. It sounds like this has some traces of that, which is really cool.
Well, the first album had that too. I mean, most of this, you know, most of the stuff I do, you know, I had an album I did in 82, which was a rock, kind of Rod Stewart-y rock album, you know, that I sang. And then in 78, I did an instrumental blow-by-blow kind of record. Yeah. You know, and then I did all this stuff in between, Vanilla Fudge and Cactus and, you know, King Kobra, which is totally different than Vanilla Fudge.
Oh, yeah.
Know? And Blue Murders.
I was just going to say, there you go with that.
The Guitar Zeus, you know, it's like grungy jazz rock. Yeah. You know, kind of stuff. So I try never to be locked into other than being heavy, you know.
Yeah, and Tony Franklin is just such a monster bass player.
Monster player.
So versatile, has his own sound.
When he plays, the bass sings.
Yeah.
With that fretless, he makes the bass sing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love playing with Tony. No, I tell you what, after playing with Billy, he said he's always wanted to do something with me. We're going to go out. We have a BBA live record supposedly going to come out. I'm thinking maybe next year, the 50th anniversary of BBA.
Nice.
And it's 7 new songs, and I think it might be coupled in with the Japanese live record. But anyway, I don't think Jeff Beck would want to go out and play, that album, but I would. And we want to make like a tribute to Tim Bogert.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and put together Pat Travers, Billy Sheehan, and myself, and to go out and do BBA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Play
songs from this live album, play songs from the Japanese album, play songs from the first album.
Yeah. How weird is it, or is it not weird, to hear that music, especially the live performances that happened that long ago? Is there a time warp in your brain or the timeline of your life, or how, and the fact that it's still relevant music too?
I mean, I just think of it at that time, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
And this live album in 1974, I mixed it with Jeff's engineer 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we signed the thing before Tim passed away that Jeff's manager was going to get the deal. Honestly, we don't know what they're waiting for, but now we're thinking it might be the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
But they say it's getting close, so whatever that means. But when it does come out, if it comes out, we're going to go do that tour and make it a tribute to Tim, and like have some screens maybe, and have pictures of BBA and pictures of Tim, and
great,
and some psychedelic stuff going on behind it.
That would be great. I'd love to see that.
Fun.
Yeah.
I just love playing, as long as I can keep playing and not, I think Bruce just sent me a text that something happened with the Sprinter van we rented for this Cactus tour coming up Friday.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know what happened, but I'll have to read it when we're done. But
they didn't have the black one. They got you lime green.
No, I don't know what happened, but it's really a drag. And between that and all the gas and the COVID, ruined the business,
Yeah. Things are starting to open up though, which is cool. You got dates, you're getting out.
If you're really big, like playing stadiums, it's easier.
Yeah.
Than playing on the level we're playing on, where you're playing small theaters and clubs. And, when you get things like this happen, we don't have a tour bus because there's not enough shows, not enough money, but, Buddy Rich used to tell me this stuff. He said, you singers play the arenas and us drummers, we play 500-seat places. And he was not happy about that.
Yeah.
But I see what he means, but it's a pain.
Yeah.
But, I just want to play till I can't play anymore.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you're still staying so busy. Last question. I was going to ask this, but you brought up Buddy Rich. What do you think it is that has made people like Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Gene Krupa, yourself, other great drummers, also great band leaders? Does it have to do with just the intonation with rhythm that drummers innately have that make them a great band leader? What do you think it is that they all have in common?
I don't know. It's just survival. Yeah. Buddy Rich was from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Louis Bellson, I don't know where Louis was from, but, and you went to a plane with other people.
Yeah, the taking charge attitude.
Yeah, and then it's like, I think when it really happened for me was when I got fired from Ozzy. His wife said, "Your name is too big. You need your own band."
Yeah, they didn't want him overshadowed.
So you're kind of forced into it. I mean, I'd love to be playing with Ringo or, with The Who or somebody else, I don't have to do all this. I could just jump in a bus or jump on a plane and go play. But this is where it led me.
Yeah.
That's where it led Buddy.
Yeah. Well, what you're turning out is awesome. And I'm glad that you have so many hot things bubbling up right now. Can't wait to see them get poured into something that we can imbibe on your music again with all these different projects. It's really cool. And thank you so much for taking time, not only in a busy recording day, but if you don't mind me saying, folks, one day his first day testing negative last night from COVID, and here he is on Drum Talk TV, our first recipient of the Drum Talk TV Rock Legacy Award in 2020. You can see that video if you look up NAM, DTTV NAM 20, that hashtag, you'll